I took my daughter to Disney to give her magic. Instead, I ran into the father she'd never met and watched him do the math in real time. 8 years, one daughter, those eyes, that dimple. Christian Larry, billionaire CEO, staring at the child I swore he'd never find. His face went white. Jane asked why the man was crying, and I realized that in trying to protect her from heartbreak, I'd stolen something I could never give back. Now he was 10 feet away, and he knew. The first time I saw him again, it wasn't across a courtroom or in a glossy magazine. It was in line for churros. Jane was tugging on my hand, her pink mini ears slipping sideways as she bounced with excitement. "Mommy, look, the castle is real." I smiled, kneeling to straighten her headband, memorizing her joy the way I always did, like I might need it later to survive something harder. Her face was flushed from the sun, sticky from cotton candy, glowing in that way only children at Disney can glow. Pure, untouched by anything complicated. I'd saved for this trip for 2 years. Every extra shift, every sacrificed dinner out, every moment I'd told myself that one day I'd give her this, not because she needed it, but because I did. Because after everything we'd survived, I wanted to prove we could have magic too. Mrs. Sanders, our 72-year-old neighbor, had insisted on coming along as backup. She was watching our bags near the benches, probably reading one of her romance novels and pretending not to notice when I got emotional. She'd been there through it all. The pregnancy, the late-night fevers, the years when I'd been too proud to ask for help, but she'd shown up anyway with casseroles and babysitting. She was the closest thing Jane had to a grandmother, the closest thing I had to family. Disney was supposed to be the reward, the place where nothing bad could reach us. But here's what they don't tell you about places full of people. Secrets don't hide well in crowds. They wait, and when they're ready, they walk right up to you. That's when I felt it. That strange, cold awareness you get when the past steps too close behind you. Like the air pressure drops, like your body knows before your brain catches up. I looked up, and there he was, Christian Larry. 8 years since I'd vanished from his life. 8 years since I'd disappeared without a goodbye, without a forwarding address, without leaving anything behind except an empty apartment and a phone number that would never ring again. 8 years since I'd sworn I would never let him find us. The billionaire CEO who once planned his future with me now stood 10 feet away, dressed casually but unmistakable. Dark jeans, white linen shirt rolled at the sleeves, sunglasses pushed up into his hair. He looked older, sharper somehow, but still carried that calm confidence, that tailored ease, that aura of someone who owned every room he entered. Even at Disneyland, especially at Disneyland, he wasn't alone. There was a woman beside him, elegant, polished, laughing at something on her phone. A colleague, maybe. A date. I didn't know, didn't care. My entire nervous system had locked onto one fact. He was here, and we were 10 feet away. My hands started shaking. I gripped Jane's shoulder a little too tightly, and she looked up at me, confused. "Mommy? It's okay, sweetheart," I whispered, my voice not my own. "Just stay close." I turned slightly, angling my body to block his view of Jane. Maybe he wouldn't notice. Maybe he'd walk past. Maybe fate would give me just one more minute to figure out what to do. But then his gaze swept the crowd. Casual at first, the way people do when they're waiting, scanning faces, checking the time, looking at nothing in particular. And then his eyes landed on my daughter. Our daughter. He broke right there in front of me. The way his focus shifted, the way his expression changed from distracted to curious, to something sharper, something I couldn't name. He tilted his head slightly, the same way Jane did when she was trying to figure something out. Because she was doing it right then. Jane was staring back at him with that wide-eyed wonder kids have when they see someone interesting. She waved, he smiled, and in that smile I saw him notice. The eyes, the same deep brown with flecks of gold that caught the light. The dimple, the one that only appeared on the left side when she grinned too wide. The way she tilted her head when she was curious, like the world was a puzzle she was determined to solve. Same as his, exactly like his. Christian's smile faltered, his brow furrowed. He looked at her a beat too long, and I knew, God, I knew, that his brain was doing what mine had done 7 years ago when I'd first held her. The math, the impossible, undeniable math. His gaze lifted slowly, past Jane, up to me, and our eyes met. For a moment, the noise around us faded. The laughter, the music, the mechanical hum of rides, it all dissolved into a single, suffocating silence. 8 years collapsed into a single breath. "Margaret?" His voice hit me harder than I expected, lower than I remembered, steadier, threaded with disbelief, like he'd seen a ghost and wasn't sure whether to run toward it or away. I forced a polite smile, the kind you give strangers, the kind that says, "This is fine. Everything is fine." "Christian," he took a step closer, then stopped, like he didn't trust himself. "You look—" He stopped himself, shook his head. "I thought I recognized you." "Disney does that," I said lightly, pulling Jane closer. "Makes memories show up when you're not ready." His eyes dropped again, to Jane, to her pink mini ears, to the churro she was holding, to the Mickey balloon tied to my wrist, and then back to her face. "And this is—" he asked gently, his voice careful now. Too careful. I swallowed hard. "My daughter." The word felt like glass in my throat. Christian crouched slightly, instinctively lowering himself to her level. He had always been good with people, always knew how to make them feel seen. Even now, even here. "Hi there," he said softly. "I'm Christian." Jane waved again, less shy this time. "I'm Jane. I'm 6 3/4. This is my first time at Disney and my mom cries during fireworks." Then she leaned closer and whispered like she was sharing a secret. "She tries to hide it, but I always know." I let out a breath that was supposed to be a laugh, but came out too quickly. Christian smiled, genuine this time, and something in his chest seemed to crack open. 6 3/4, he repeated, his voice quieter now. "Almost 7, Jane corrected proudly. He stood, slowly, too slowly. His gaze snapped back to mine, and I saw the exact moment the timeline clicked into place, the exact moment the question formed, the exact moment he realized what I'd been hiding. "Margaret, don't," I whispered, but he wasn't asking permission anymore. "How old is she really?" The churro line moved forward. Jane tugged my hand. The world kept spinning, and I stood there, frozen, staring at the man I'd run from, the man whose child I'd raised in secret, the man who was about to shatter the life I'd built with a single question. I should have lied. I'd lied for 8 years. But something about this moment, this place, this child holding my hand, made the truth feel heavier than fear. "She's almost 7, I said quietly. The words hung in the air between us like smoke. Christian stared at me, then at Jane, then back at me, and the color drained from his face. "No," he whispered. "That's not—" "Yes," I said. "It is." The silence between us roared louder than any crowd. Jane looked up at me, sensing something wrong but not understanding what. "Mommy, is he your friend?" I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. I stopped. "He's someone I used to know." Christian's jaw tightened. His hands balled into fists at his sides. Not in anger, in something worse. Shock, denial, grief for something he didn't know he'd lost. "We need to talk," he said, his voice steady but barely. "Not here," I said quickly. "Not now." "Then when?" His voice cracked. "When were you planning to tell me I have a daughter?" Jane's head snapped toward him, then toward me, her little face scrunched in confusion. "Mommy?" she whispered. "What does he mean?" And that exact moment was when everything I'd protected for 8 years began to unravel. I sent Jane to sit with Mrs. Sanders. She was watching our stroller near the benches, blissfully unaware that my entire world was collapsing 50 feet away. "Sweetheart," I said, kneeling in front of Jane, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Can you go sit with Mrs. Sanders? Just for a few minutes. Mommy needs to talk to this man about grown-up stuff." Jane hesitated. She wasn't stupid. She knew something was wrong. Her eyes searched my face, looking for reassurance I wasn't sure I could give. "Is everything okay?" she asked quietly. "Yes, baby. Everything's fine, I promise." The lie tasted bitter. "Okay," she said slowly. Then she looked at Christian with an expression far too perceptive for a 6-year-old. "Are you making my mommy sad?" Christian's face crumpled. "No, sweetheart. I would never want to do that." Jane studied him for another beat, then skipped away, her pink mini ears bouncing with every step. The moment she was out of earshot, I turned on him. "You don't get to call her sweetheart," I said, my voice low and sharp. "You don't get to crouch down and smile at her like you have any right to—" "She's mine," he interrupted, his voice raw. "Isn't she?" I said nothing. "Margaret, answer me. Is that little girl my daughter?" The question hung between us like a blade. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a man undone. His polished confidence was gone. His hands were trembling, his eyes were wet, and I felt something I didn't expect. Guilt. "Yes," I said quietly. "She's yours." Christian staggered back like I'd hit him. He pressed a hand to his chest, breathing hard, like the air had been sucked out of his lungs. "Oh my God," he whispered. "Oh my God." People walked past us. Children laughed. A parade started somewhere in the distance. Life kept moving, but we were frozen. "Why?" he finally asked, his voice breaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you left," I said, the words coming out harder than I meant. "Because when I needed you most, you chose your company over us." "I didn't know you were pregnant." "You didn't ask," I shot back. "You didn't call. You didn't check. You just moved on." Christian shook his head, tears streaming down his face now. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about fair? I was 24 years old, pregnant, and terrified. I called you 17 times, 17, and you sent me to voicemail." He flinched. "I showed up at your office," I continued, my voice shaking. "Your assistant told me you were in Tokyo, on business, for 3 weeks. You didn't even tell me you were leaving the country. I was trying to save the company, and I was trying to save us," I shouted, then caught myself, lowering my voice. "But there was no us anymore. There was just you, your empire, your future, and I was an inconvenience." Christian's face twisted in pain. "That's not true, isn't it?" I asked. "Because the moment things got hard, you disappeared. So I made a choice. I disappeared too." He wiped his face with the back of his hand, struggling to compose himself. "You should have told me." "Why?" I asked. "So you could send checks? Hire a nanny? Show up twice a year with expensive gifts and call yourself a father? That's not who I am." "I didn't know who you were anymore," I said quietly, "and I wasn't going to risk my daughter finding out the hard way." The words landed like stones. Christian stood there, destroyed, and I felt the weight of 8 years pressing down on both of us. "I would have stayed," he said, his voice barely audible. "If I'd known, I would have stayed." "Would you?" I asked, meeting his eyes. "Or would you have resented me? Resented her? Would you have looked at your daughter and seen the life you gave up?" He didn't answer, and that silence, that terrible, telling silence, was all the proof I needed. "That's what I thought," I said softly. I turned to walk away. "Margaret, wait." "No," I said, not looking back. "You've had your answer. Now leave us alone." "I can't," he said. "She's my daughter." I stopped, turned slowly. "She's been my daughter for 7 years," I said. "You don't get to walk in now and claim her like she's a stock acquisition." His jaw tightened. "I'm not trying to take her from you." "Then what do you want?" "I want—" He stopped, took a breath. "I want to know her. I want a chance to—" "To what?" I interrupted. "To be a father? You can't just decide that now. It doesn't work that way." "Then how does it work?" he asked desperately. "Tell me, because I don't know what to do. I just found out I have a daughter and His voice broke again. "I don't know what to do." For the first time since I'd seen him, I saw something real. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the man who'd broken my heart. Just a man who'd lost something he didn't know he had. And despite everything, despite the years of anger and fear and survival, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, but maybe understanding. "I need time," I said finally, "to think, to figure out what this means." "How much time?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but you don't get to demand answers right now. Not after 8 years. Christian nodded slowly. Okay, but please, don't disappear again." I looked at him for a long moment. "I won't," I said. "But Christian?" "Yeah? If you hurt her, if you make promises you can't keep, if you walk away when it gets hard, I will disappear, and you will never find us again." He held my gaze. "I won't. You did before." "I was a different man before," he said quietly. "Then prove it," I said, and I walked away, leaving him standing there, shattered, in the middle of the happiest place on earth. But as I walked back toward Jane, I realized something terrifying. He wasn't the only one who'd been broken by the truth. I had been too, and I had no idea how to fix it. What Jane would ask me 3 weeks later would force me to stop hiding behind protection and face the truth. I hadn't just been saving her, I'd been punishing him, and she was about to make me choose which mattered more. Here's what I've learned about impossible choices. They're only impossible until you make them. Then you have to live with them, every single day. If you've ever made a decision that haunted you, if you've ever wondered if you did the right thing for the wrong reasons, leave a comment. Tell me your story. Because the women in this community, we see each other. We hold each other's truths. And if this story is bringing up feelings you thought you'd buried, hit subscribe. You're not alone in this. That night in the hotel room, I couldn't sleep. Jane was curled up beside me, her breathing soft and steady, her pink mini ears discarded on the nightstand. She'd asked 3 more times who the man was. I deflected each time with vague answers that satisfied a 6-year-old but would stop working soon. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the day over and over, and my mind drifted back. Back to when I was 24. Back to when Christian Larry wasn't a billionaire CEO. He was just Christian, the man who made me laugh, the man who stayed up late talking about dreams and fears and futures, the man who looked at me like I was the only person in the room. We met at a startup conference in San Francisco. I was there representing the small PR firm I worked for, handing out business cards and pretending I understood half of what the tech entrepreneurs were talking about. He was there pitching his company, 3 years old, barely profitable, running on investor money and hope. We ended up at the hotel bar after the final panel. He was drinking whiskey, I was drinking wine, and we talked until 4 a.m. about everything and nothing. 2 weeks later, he called. 6 months later, I loved him. A year after that, we moved in together. It wasn't perfect. He worked constantly, 70-hour weeks, 80 sometimes. But I understood. He was building something. And I believed in him, I believed in us, until the company started growing. Suddenly, there were board meetings, investors, acquisitions. Christian was traveling constantly, New York, San Francisco, London, Tokyo. And I was home, alone, trying to hold together a relationship that felt like it was slipping through my fingers. I didn't mind the work. I minded the silence, the calls that went unanswered, the dinners I ate alone, the nights I lay awake, wondering if he was thinking about me at all. And then I got pregnant. I found out on a Tuesday morning. I took 3 tests just to be sure. Then I sat on the bathroom floor and cried. Not because I didn't want the baby, but because I didn't know if he would. I called him. Voicemail. I called again an hour later. Voicemail. I tried 17 times over 3 days. 17. Finally, I showed up at his office. His assistant, a polished woman in her 30s with perfectly styled hair, gave me a sympathetic smile. "I'm sorry, Margaret. Mr. Larry is in Tokyo. He'll be back in 3 weeks." 3 weeks? I repeated, my voice hollow. "Yes, there's a major acquisition he's overseeing. He's unreachable except for emergencies." I wanted to scream, "This is an emergency," but I didn't, because I realized something in that moment. If I had to convince him that our baby was an emergency, then he'd already made his choice. So I left. I went home, packed my things, closed our joint bank account, and took only what I'd contributed, left my key on the counter, and disappeared. I didn't leave a note. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I changed my number, deleted my social media, moved to a different city. I erased myself from his life the way he'd erased me from his priorities. The pregnancy was hard, not physically, although that was difficult too, but emotionally, I was alone, terrified. Working 2 jobs to save money, crying in grocery store aisles because I didn't know if I could do this. But then Jane was born, and everything changed. She was 7 pounds, 3 ounces. She had his eyes, his dimple, his stubborn little chin. And I loved her so fiercely it hurt. I named her Jane after my grandmother. No middle name, no reference to him. She was mine, fully, completely mine. I didn't Google him, didn't check if he tried to find me, didn't wonder if he missed me. I couldn't. Because survival meant moving forward, not looking back. Every time I walked past a newsstand and saw business magazines with tech moguls on the covers, I'd avert my eyes. Every time someone mentioned a successful startup, I'd change the subject. I built my life in the negative space around Christian Larry, carving out existence in the places he wasn't. And for 7 years it worked, until Disney, until churros, until fate decided we'd hidden long enough. If I'd seen him succeeding, seen him thriving while I was drowning, I don't know if I could have survived it. So I didn't look. I just kept going. For 7 years, I built a life, a small apartment, a good job, a few close friends, a daughter who was smart and kind and funny and completely unaware that half her DNA belonged to a man she'd never met. And I told myself I'd made the right choice, that I'd protected her, that we were better off without him. But sitting there in that hotel room, watching Jane sleep, I wondered for the first time if I'd been protecting her or punishing him. Maybe both, maybe neither. Maybe I'd just been surviving the only way I knew how. "Mommy?" Jane's voice pulled me back to the present. She was awake, looking up at me with sleepy eyes. "Yeah, baby. Are you sad?" I forced a smile. "No, sweetheart, just thinking." "About what?" "Grown-up stuff." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That man from today, Christian." My heart stopped. "What about him?" Why does he look like me? The question hung in the air between us. I'd known it was coming, had been dreading it since the moment Christian's eyes met hers in the churro line. What do you mean, sweetheart? His eyes, Jane said simply. They're like mine. And he has a dimple. Like me. And he tilts his head when he thinks. The same way I do. She was 6 years old and had noticed what I'd spent 7 years trying to hide. People sometimes look alike, I said carefully. It's just a coincidence. Jane studied me with those two perceptive eyes. Mommy? Yeah? Is he my daddy? The words hit me like a physical blow. I opened my mouth, closed it. My heart was racing. My hands were shaking. This was the moment where everything I'd built, every wall I'd constructed, every secret I'd protected, came crashing down. Why do you ask that? I whispered. Because he was crying, Jane said softly, when he said goodbye. And people don't cry like that unless something really important is happening. I stared at my daughter, this brilliant, observant, beautiful child, and realized I'd been protecting her from a truth she was already beginning to understand. Baby, is he? She asked again, her voice small. Is Christian my daddy? And in that hotel room, with the ghost of fireworks still lingering in the night sky, I realized I had a choice. I could lie and protect us both a little longer, or I could tell the truth and let the healing begin. I took a breath. Yes, I said softly. He is. Jane was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded, like I'd just confirmed something she'd already known in her heart. Why didn't you tell me before? Because it's complicated, sweetheart, and I wanted to protect you. From what? From being hurt. She thought about this. Is that why he wasn't here before? Because you were protecting me? The question was so much more complicated than she realized. Yes, I said, and no, it's hard to explain. Can you try? So I did, as simply as I could. I told her that Christian and I had loved each other once, that we'd stopped being together before she was born, that he hadn't known about her, and that was my choice, that I'd been scared and made a decision I thought was right. Are you still scared? She asked. A little, I admitted. Of him? Of what happens next? Jane nestled closer. It's okay to be scared, Mommy. You tell me that all the time. I kissed the top of her head, my heart breaking and mending at the same time. You're right, baby. Thank you. She yawned. Can I see him again? Do you want to? Yeah, she said simply. He seems nice and sad. I don't like when people are sad. Within minutes, she was asleep again, but I lay awake for hours, knowing that tomorrow everything would change. The knock came at 7:30 in the morning. I knew it was Christian before I even opened the door. Jane was still asleep, and I'd been up for an hour drinking bad hotel coffee and rehearsing conversations in my head. I opened the door. He stood in the hallway looking like he hadn't slept at all. His hair was disheveled. His eyes were bloodshot. He was wearing the same clothes from yesterday. Can we talk? He asked quietly, his voice hoarse. I glanced back at Jane's sleeping form, then stepped into the hallway, pulling the door mostly closed behind me. You look terrible, I said. I couldn't sleep. He ran a hand through his hair. I kept thinking about her, about everything I missed, about... He stopped. I'm sorry. I know you don't want to hear this. What do you want, Christian? To apologize, he said. Really apologize. Not the way I did yesterday when I was in shock and couldn't think straight. I want you to hear me. I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. Okay, I'm listening. He took a breath. I failed us. 8 years ago, I was so consumed with saving my company that I forgot about the person who mattered most. You tried to reach me and I ignored you. You needed me and I wasn't there. His voice cracked. And because of that, I missed 7 years of my daughter's life. That's on me. Not you. Me. I said nothing, letting him continue. I don't have excuses that matter, he said. I can tell you about the pressure I was under, about the investors threatening to pull out, about the 100 fires I was putting out every day. But none of that changes the fact that I should have answered your calls. I should have made you the priority. Yep, I agreed. You should have. I know I don't deserve a second chance, he continued. I know I have no right to ask for anything. But Margaret, please let me know her. Let me try to be the father she deserves. I'll do whatever it takes. I studied him for a long moment. This powerful CEO, humbled and broken, begging for something money couldn't buy. If I let you into her life, I said carefully, there are rules, non-negotiable. Anything. No media, I said. No press releases about your secret daughter. No photographs for magazines. She's not a prop for your image. She's a child who deserves privacy. Agreed. No lawyers. No custody battles. No trying to take her from me because you have more money and more power. His face paled. I would never. Promise me, I interrupted. Say the words. I promise, he said immediately. I'm not trying to take her from you. You're her mother. You raised her. I just want to be part of her life. No expensive gifts, I continued. No ponies or trips to Paris or iPads to buy her affection. She doesn't need things. She needs consistency. He nodded. Okay. And most importantly, I said, my voice hard now, no disappearing. If you commit to this, you show up. You answer phone calls. You keep promises. Because if you walk away when it gets hard, when she's throwing a tantrum or going through a difficult phase, it will destroy her. Do you understand? Yes. Because she's not a business deal you can walk away from when it stops being profitable, I said. She's a human being. And if you hurt her, I will make sure you never see her again, a billionaire or not. Christian held my gaze. I understand, and I won't disappear. I swear to you, Margaret, I'm not that man anymore. Prove it, I said. How? Show up, consistently, not just when it's convenient, not just when she's being cute and easy, all of it, the good days and the bad days and the boring days in between. I will, he said. We stood there in silence for a moment. She knows, I said finally. About you. His eyes widened. You told her? She figured it out. Asked me last night if you were her father. What did you say? The truth. Christian's breath hitched. What did she say? She wants to see you again. Relief flooded his face so completely I thought he might collapse. When? He asked. Give me an hour, I said. Let me talk to her. Prepare her. Then you can come by and we'll figure this out. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you, Margaret. I won't let you down. I won't let her down. I know, I said. An hour later, we were sitting in the hotel breakfast area. Jane was eating Mickey-shaped waffles, swinging her legs under the table. Christian sat across from us, looking terrified. Hi, Christian, Jane said, sticky with syrup. Hi, Jane, he said softly. She studied him with open curiosity. My mom says you're my dad. Christian glanced at me, then back at her. I am, if that's okay with you. It's weird, Jane said matter-of-factly. I've never had a dad before. I know, it's weird for me, too. I've never been a dad before. Are you good at it? He let out a surprised laugh. I don't know yet, but I want to try. Okay, she said simply, then took another bite of waffle. Christian looked like he didn't know what to do with his hands. He leaned forward, then sat back, smiled too wide, then tried to look casual. So, Jane, he said, your mom tells me you like dinosaurs? I love dinosaurs, Jane corrected, especially T-Rex. Did you know they couldn't actually roar? They probably made sounds more like birds. I didn't know that, Christian said. That's really cool. What's your favorite dinosaur? Jane asked. Christian blinked. I don't know. I've never really thought about it. Jane looked disappointed. Everyone should have a favorite dinosaur. You're right, he said quickly. I'll pick Triceratops? Good choice, Jane said, nodding seriously. They had 3 horns and were herbivores, which means they only ate plants. That's right, Christian said, clearly relieved he'd passed some test. They talked for another 20 minutes, Jane leading the conversation with effortless confidence. Christian listened to every word like it was the most important thing he'd ever heard. And I sat there, my emotions a tangled mess. He was trying so hard, too hard, overcompensating for 7 years of absence with forced enthusiasm. But Jane didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did and didn't care. She was just happy to have someone interested in her dinosaur facts. Can I ask you something? Jane said suddenly. Of course, Christian said. Why weren't you here before? The question landed like a bomb. Christian's smile faltered. He glanced at me, panic in his eyes. That's a really good question, he said slowly. And the answer is, I didn't know you existed. Your mom and I weren't together when you were born, and she didn't tell me about you. Not because she wanted to be mean, but because she was protecting you. From what? From me maybe not being ready to be a good dad, he said honestly. Sometimes adults make mistakes, and I made some big ones. Are you ready now? I'm going to try really hard to be. Okay, she said. Then, without warning, she reached across the table and took his hand. Christian froze. Jane's small fingers wrapped around his, sticky with syrup, innocent and trusting. You have big hands, she said, examining them. Like giant hands. Yeah, Christian said, his voice breaking. I do. He looked at me, tears streaming down his face, holding our daughter's hand like it was the most precious thing in the world. And for the first time since I'd seen him in that churro line, I thought, maybe this could actually work. Maybe. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is give someone a second chance, Not because they deserve it, but because your child needs you to try. If you've ever had to choose between protecting your heart and opening a door you swore you'd keep closed, share this story. Someone in your life needs to hear it, and drop a comment telling me, would you have given him that first meeting, or would you have run? I want to know what you would have done. Over the next month, something unexpected happened. 4 weekends, 16 days total that Christian carved out of his impossible schedule. 4 flights across the country. 4 times Jane's face lit up when she heard his car in the driveway. Jane started asking about Christian, not just casually, constantly. When is he coming back? Can we call him? Mommy, does he like butterflies? Because I found one today and I want to tell him. I'd expected her to be cautious, to need time to process, to ask the hard questions about why he hadn't been there before. But she didn't. To her, he was just a nice man who liked to listen, who seemed genuinely interested in her dinosaur facts and her stories about school and her theories about why clouds were different shapes. And maybe for a 6-year-old, that was enough. Christian came back 3 days after we returned from Disneyland. He'd rearranged meetings, pushed back a conference call with investors, flew from San Francisco to our small city just to spend an afternoon with her. When I opened the door, he was holding a small bag. I know you said no expensive gifts, he said quickly, but I saw this and thought, I hope it's okay. Inside was a book, the big book of dinosaurs. Nothing extravagant, just a book. Jane's face lit up. This is the one I wanted. Mommy, look, it has pictures of every dinosaur ever discovered. What do you say? I prompted. Thank you. Jane threw her arms around Christian's legs. He stood there frozen for a moment, then carefully placed his hand on her head. You're welcome, sweetheart. They sat together, Jane pointing out different dinosaurs, Christian listening with complete focus. He asked questions, laughed at her jokes, let her teach him things. And I realized he wasn't trying to be impressive. He was trying to be present. By the 4th visit, Christian had learned Jane's rhythms. He knew she liked her sandwiches cut diagonally, not down the middle, that she was afraid of thunderstorms and needed her stuffed elephant during them. That she got cranky if she didn't have a snack by 3:30. Small things, things that seemed insignificant but were actually everything. One afternoon, we were at the park. Jane was on the swings and Christian was pushing her, counting each push like it was the most important job in the world. Higher, higher, Jane shouted, laughing. Christian pushed her higher, and I felt my stomach clench with instinctive worry. Not too high, I called out. Christian immediately slowed down. Sorry, got carried away. But Jane was laughing, fearless, trusting him completely. After the swings, she ran toward the jungle gym. There were bigger kids playing, 8 or 9 years old, roughhousing near the slide. Jane started to climb, and one of the bigger boys pushed past her carelessly. She stumbled, grabbing the railing. Christian was there before I could move. Not angry, not confrontational, just there. He steadied Jane with one hand, then looked at the boy. Hey, buddy, gotta be careful. There are smaller kids up here, too. The boy nodded sheepishly and moved away. Christian crouched in front of Jane. You okay? Yeah, she said. That boy was mean. He wasn't being careful, Christian said gently. But you're all right. Do you want to keep playing, or do you want to do something else? I want to keep playing. Okay, I'll be right here if you need me. He stayed at the base of the jungle gym, watching her climb, ready to catch her if she fell. I stood back, watching this man I used to know become someone I didn't recognize, someone better, someone present. That evening, after Christian left, I was putting Jane to bed. She was quiet, hugging her elephant, staring at the ceiling. Mommy? Yeah, sweetheart? I like Christian. I'm glad, baby. He makes me feel safe. The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd spent 7 years trying to be enough, trying to be both mother and father, trying to create a world where she felt secure and loved and protected. And she did. I knew she did. But hearing her say those words about him, after just a few weeks, made me realize something I'd been fighting against. She needed more than I could give alone, not because I wasn't enough, but because she deserved more than one person fighting for her. He's trying really hard, I said carefully, to be a good dad. Is that what he is now? My dad? If you want him to be. Jane thought about this. I think I do. Okay, I said, my voice thick. Then he is. She smiled, then closed her eyes, content in a way I hadn't seen before. I sat there long after she fell asleep, watching her breathe, feeling control slip through my fingers like water. For 7 years, it had been just us, my daughter, my rules, my world. But now there was someone else, someone who was learning her routines, earning her trust, becoming part of her life in ways I couldn't control. And the terrifying part was, I didn't want to control it anymore. Because watching them together, watching him listen to her, protect her, show up for her, I realized something I'd been too afraid to admit. This wasn't about me losing her. This was about her gaining something she'd always deserved, a father. The next time Christian came over, it was raining. Jane was coloring at the kitchen table while I made dinner. Christian knocked, and Jane jumped up to let him in. "You're all wet," she said, laughing as he shook water from his hair. "It's pouring out there," he said, smiling. "I brought movies. Thought we could have a movie night if that's okay with your mom." Jane looked at me with pleading eyes. "Sure," I said, "as long as you finish your broccoli at dinner." "Deal." We ate together. Spaghetti and meatballs, nothing fancy. Christian asked Jane about school, and she told him about her art project and how her friend Lily had moved her desk next to hers. After dinner, we settled on the couch. Jane insisted on sitting between us, her small body warm against my side. Christian had brought Finding Nemo. Halfway through, Jane fell asleep, her head on Christian's shoulder. He looked down at her, then at me. "She's perfect," he whispered. "Yeah," I agreed. "She is." "I keep waiting for this to feel real," he said quietly. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and find out it was a dream." "It's real." "I know, but Margaret, I miss so much." I look at her and I see glimpses of what she must have been like as a baby, as a toddler, and I'll never get those moments back. "No," I said honestly, "you won't." "Do you think she'll forgive me when she's older and understands what I missed?" I thought about this. "I think she'll understand that you showed up when you finally knew. That's what will matter." He nodded, tears in his eyes again. We sat in comfortable silence, the movie playing, our daughter sleeping between us. When the credits rolled, Christian carefully shifted Jane so I could carry her to bed. He stood by the door, putting on his jacket, preparing to leave. "Margaret? Yeah? Can I?" He stopped, started again. "When you go back home, can I still see her regularly?" The question hung in the air. This was the moment, the point where I either opened the door wider or closed it. "How regularly?" I asked. "As often as you'll let me. I can fly in every weekend, or more if that's okay. I'll work around her schedule, whatever she needs." "That's a lot of flying." "I don't care," he said. "She's more important than any meeting I could ever have." I studied him, this man who was rearranging his entire life for a child he'd just met. "Okay," I said finally. "But Christian, this isn't a phase. You can't do this for a few months and then get tired of the commute. She's already getting attached. If you're going to do this, you do it all the way." "I will," he said immediately. "I promise." "Then yes. You can keep seeing her." Relief flooded his face. "Thank you. Thank you, Margaret. I won't let you down. I won't let her down." "I know," I said. And somehow, impossibly, I meant it. As he left, walking into the rain toward his car, I realized something that both terrified and freed me. The life I'd built alone was becoming something different, something bigger, something that might actually be what we both needed. And maybe, just maybe, that was okay. 2 weeks later, cameras would find us, and I'd discover whether Christian's promises were real or just another thing that disappeared when life got hard. But right now, in this moment, watching him walk to his car in the rain, I let myself hope. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you're strong enough to trust that your child can carry some of the weight. If you're a mother or grandmother watching this, you know that feeling when you realize they don't need you to control everything anymore. They just need you to be there. If that hit home, hit that like button and subscribe. These stories matter because your stories matter. Tell me in the comments. When did you realize you had to let go? 3 weeks later, everything fell apart. We were at the park, the one near my apartment with the good swings and the sandbox Jane loved. It was a Saturday afternoon, warm and sunny, the kind of day that felt safe and ordinary. Christian had flown in the night before. He'd been coming every weekend, sometimes more, and Jane had started calling him Dad. Not all the time, but enough that it felt real. We were sitting on a bench, watching Jane climb the jungle gym with 3 other kids. Christian was telling me about a new project at work, and I was half listening, mostly just watching Jane laugh, normal, peaceful. And then I saw him, a man, 30-something, baseball cap pulled low, phone raised, standing near the park entrance. Not watching his own children, watching us, taking pictures. My entire body went cold. "Christian," I said quietly, my voice tight. "Yeah? Don't turn around, but there's someone taking pictures. Behind us, near the gate." Christian's expression hardened. He glanced casually over his shoulder, and his jaw clenched. "Paparazzi," he said quietly. "How did they find us?" I don't know, but we need to leave. Now. We stood up, trying to stay calm. I called Jane over, keeping my voice light. Hey, sweetheart, time to go. Already, she whined, but I was playing castle. I know, baby, but we need to go home now. She pouted but came over, grabbing her backpack. Christian took her hand naturally, and we walked toward the parking lot. The man with the camera followed. Not close, but close enough that I could feel his presence like a shadow. We got to Christian's car. He opened the door for Jane, helped her with her seatbelt, then turned to me. I'll handle this, he said quietly. How? Just trust me. We drove to my apartment in silence. Jane chattered in the back seat, oblivious, but my hands were shaking. My phone stayed quiet for an hour, long enough that I thought maybe we'd escape, long enough that I'd started to breathe again. Then it started. One buzz, then another, then a flood I couldn't stop. Unknown numbers. Text messages from friends I hadn't talked to in months. Is that you in the photo? OMG, are you dating Christian, Larry? Who's the little girl? My stomach dropped. Christian, I said, my voice barely controlled. Check your phone. He pulled it out and his face went pale. Oh God, what? He showed me. It was a gossip blog. The headline read, Billionaire CEO Christian Larry spotted with mystery woman and child. Secret family? The photo was grainy but clear enough. Christian, me, Jane between us, holding both our hands. I felt like I was going to be sick. They know where I live, I said. They followed us home. I'll take care of it, Christian said. I promise. But promises felt empty when my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. By that evening, the story had exploded. News outlets picked it up. Gossip sites ran with it. Twitter was speculating wildly. Some people thought Jane was Christian's niece. Others thought I was a mistress. A few were disturbingly close to the truth. Christian Larry's secret daughter. Billionaire's mystery child revealed who is the woman in Christian Larry's life? I couldn't breathe. This was exactly what I'd been afraid of. Exactly why I'd hidden for 8 years. People started showing up at my apartment building. Photographers camped outside. A reporter knocked on my door at 9 p.m. asking for a statement. Jane was confused and scared. Mommy, why are those people taking pictures of our building? They're just confused, baby. It's going to be okay. But I wasn't sure it would be. Christian came over at midnight. He looked wrecked, hair disheveled, eyes wild. I'm so sorry, he said the moment I opened the door. I'm handling it. I've already called my lawyer. We're issuing a statement first thing tomorrow. A statement saying what? I demanded, my voice shaking. That you have a secret daughter you didn't know about? That I hid her for 7 years? What exactly are you going to say that makes this better? I don't know, he admitted, but I'll figure it out. I'll protect you both, I swear. You can't protect us from this, I said, trying to keep my voice down so Jane wouldn't hear. This is your world, Christian, the world I didn't want her exposed to. And now they have pictures. They know where we live. They're going to dig into everything. Then I'll make it stop. How? He ran both hands through his hair. I don't know yet, but I will. Just, please don't shut me out. Please. I wanted to. God, I wanted to slam the door and disappear again. Take Jane and run somewhere they couldn't find us. But Jane was already attached to him, already calling him dad, already counting on him to show up. Fix this, I said quietly, or we're done. The next morning, Christian released a statement, short, firm, no details. I ask that the media respect my family's privacy during this time. My personal life is not up for public consumption, and I will take legal action against anyone who harasses or endangers my loved ones. No further statements will be made. It helped. A little. The legitimate news outlets backed off, but the gossip blogs kept speculating, and people kept showing up. I couldn't take Jane to school, couldn't go to work, couldn't leave our apartment without someone shoving a camera in my face. Jane started having nightmares. One night, she woke up crying, and I held her while she sobbed. Why are people being mean? She asked. They're not trying to be mean, baby. They're just curious. But it's scary. I know, I'm so sorry. A week later, things had mostly died down, but the damage was done. I was standing in the kitchen making lunch when I heard Jane talking to her stuffed elephant. It's okay, Mr. Trunk. The people with cameras are gone now. My dad made them go away. My heart clenched. Then I heard her say something that made me freeze. I think my mommy was mad at my dad for a long time. That's why he wasn't here before. But I don't know why she was so mad. He's really nice. I stood there, knife in hand, sandwich half made, and realized she was starting to piece it together, starting to ask the questions I'd been dreading. That afternoon when Christian came over, Jane was quiet. She colored at the kitchen table while we talked in low voices about security measures and whether we needed to move. Then suddenly she looked up. Mommy? Yeah, sweetheart. Why didn't you want me to know about Dad? The question landed like a grenade. Christian went still. I felt my breath catch. What do you mean, baby? Some kids at the park were talking, she said, her voice small. Before all the camera people came, they said their parents said that you hid me from him, that you didn't want him to know about me. My heart shattered. Jane, is that true? She asked, her eyes filling with tears. Did you not want me to have a dad? No, baby, that's not. Then why? Her voice broke. Why did you keep him away? I looked at Christian. He looked at me, devastated, waiting to see how I would answer. And I realized there was no good answer. No explanation that would make sense to a 6-year-old. No way to tell her that I'd been scared and hurt and trying to protect her without making her feel like I'd stolen something from her. Because I was afraid, I said finally, kneeling in front of her. I was afraid that if I told him about you, he might not stay, and I didn't want you to be hurt. But he's here now, Jane said, tears streaming down her face. He's been here, and you almost didn't let him. The accusation hit me like a punch. I know, I whispered, and I'm sorry. Were you going to tell him? Ever? I opened my mouth, closed it, because the truth was, I didn't know. Maybe, maybe not. And Jane, brilliant, perceptive Jane, saw the answer in my silence. You weren't, she said quietly. You were never going to tell him about me. And before I could respond, before I could explain or apologize or make it right, she looked at Christian with an expression that broke my heart. I'm sorry you didn't know about me, she said, her voice small and sad. I'm sorry my mommy kept us apart. Then she ran to her room and closed the door, leaving me standing there shattered, facing the one question I'd been running from for 8 years. Had I been protecting Jane? Or had I been punishing Christian? And was there any difference at all? Sometimes life throws something at you that forces you to choose. Do you close yourself off? Or do you let people see the mess and decide to trust anyway? If you've ever had to rebuild trust after it was shattered, you know how hard that is. That's the journey we're on here. If you're finding something real in this story, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And let me in the comments. Have you ever had to decide whether to trust someone again? I stood outside Jane's bedroom door for 10 minutes before I could bring myself to knock. Christian had offered to leave, to give us space, but I'd asked him to stay. This conversation involved all three of us, whether Jane knew it yet or not. Jane, I said softly, opening the door a crack. Can I come in? She was lying on her bed, facing the wall, hugging Mr. Trunk. Her shoulders were shaking. Baby, I said, sitting on the edge of her bed. We need to talk. I don't want to talk. I know, but we need to anyway. I took a breath. Because what you said was true, and you deserve to understand why. She turned over slowly, her face blotchy and wet with tears. Why did you keep him away from me? Because I was scared, I said honestly, and hurt. And I made a choice that I thought was protecting you, but maybe I was also protecting myself. From what? From being hurt again. Jane sat up, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. Did Dad hurt you? The word dad in her voice made my heart ache. Not on purpose, I said carefully. But yes, when I found out I was pregnant with you, I tried to tell him. I called him many, many times, and he didn't answer. He was very busy with his work, and I felt like I didn't matter anymore. So you were mad at him? I was more than mad. I was heartbroken and scared. I didn't have any family to help me, and I didn't know if he would be there for us. So I made a decision to leave and raise you by myself. Jane thought about this. But you didn't even tell him I existed. No, I admitted, I didn't. Why not? Even if you were mad. This was the question I'd been dreading, the one that had no good answer. Because I thought if I told him, one of two things would happen. I said slowly. Either he would ignore us and you would grow up knowing your father didn't want you, or he would come into our lives halfway, showing up sometimes but not always, making promises he couldn't keep. And you would get hurt every time he disappointed you. So you decided for me, Jane said quietly. The words hit me like a slap. Yes, I said. I did. And that wasn't fair to you, or to him. But what if he would have been a good dad? What if you were wrong? Then I took that away from both of you, I said, tears streaming down my face now. And I will spend the rest of my life regretting that. Jane was quiet for a long moment, processing this with her 6-year-old logic. Were you wrong? She asked finally. About what? About Dad. Is he a good dad? I thought about the last month, about Christian flying across the country every weekend, about him learning her favorite dinosaur and the way she liked her sandwiches cut, about him showing up consistently, even when it was hard. He's trying really hard to be, I said, and I think he will be. But Jane, I need you to understand something important. What? Your dad didn't know about you. That's not his fault. That's mine. He's not a bad person for not being here. He just didn't know you existed. But when you were calling him, he was making a mistake, I interrupted gently. He was so focused on his work that he forgot to pay attention to the people who mattered. That was wrong, but he didn't know I was pregnant. If he had known, I think he would have come back. Jane looked at me with those two wise eyes. Do you really think that? Or are you just saying it? I really think that, I said, because I've watched him with you these past weeks, and I've seen how much he loves you, how much he wishes he could go back and change things. She thought about this. Mommy? Yeah, baby? I'm not mad at you, she said quietly. I was, but I'm not anymore. Relief flooded through me. You're not? No, because you were scared. And when people are scared, they sometimes make bad choices. You tell me that all the time. I let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. You're the smartest 6-year-old in the world. You know that? I know, she said, a small smile breaking through. Then her face got serious again. But Mommy? Yeah? I think you need to not be scared anymore. The simple truth of it broke something open in my chest. You're right, I whispered. I do. Because Dad is here now, and he's not going away, and I want him to stay. Me too, baby. She crawled into my lap, even though she was getting too big for it, and I held her tight. I love you, I said into her hair. I love you too, Mommy. We sat like that for a long time. Then she pulled back and looked at me. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think you and Dad will get back together? Like married? I wasn't expecting that question. I don't know, sweetheart. Right now, we're just trying to figure out how to be friends. How to be good parents to you together. But do you still love him? Did I? I'd spent 8 years trying not to think about Christian Larry, trying not to remember what it felt like to love him, trying not to wonder what might have been. But watching him with Jane, seeing him become the man I'd always hoped he could be, I felt something I'd buried for too long. Not love, not yet, but possibility. I think I could, I said honestly. Someday, if we both keep trying. But that's not what's important right now. What is? You. Making sure you're happy. Making sure you have what you need. Jane nodded. Then she said something that completely floored me. I think I need to spend more time with Dad. Just the two of us. My first instinct was to say no, to keep control, to be present for every interaction, every moment. But I looked at my daughter, this brave, brilliant child, and realized she was right. She needed time with him without me hovering, without me interpreting or interfering or protecting her from something that might not even happen. She needed to build her own relationship with her father, and I needed to let her. Okay, I said, the word harder to say than I expected. Really? Really, if that's what you want, and if Dad is okay with it, then yes. Jane's face lit up. Can I ask him now? Sure, baby. She jumped off my lap and ran out of the room. I followed slowly, my heart pounding. Christian was sitting on the couch, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the last hour. He stood when he saw Jane. Dad, Jane said, the word coming easier now. Yeah, sweetheart. Can we hang out, just the two of us? Without Mommy? Christian's eyes went wide. He looked at me questioning. I nodded. I would love that, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Can we go to the aquarium? I've been wanting to go, and Mommy says they have a giant octopus. Absolutely. When? Tomorrow? Christian looked at me again. I took a breath. Tomorrow is fine. Jane cheered and hugged him. Christian held her, his eyes meeting mine over her head. Thank you, he mouthed. I nodded, then walked to the kitchen before they could see me cry. Because I'd just done something that terrified me more than anything I'd done in 8 years. I'd let go. Not of Jane, never of Jane, but of the belief that I had to control everything to keep her safe. Maybe the bravest thing a mother could do wasn't holding tighter. Maybe it was learning when to let go. That night, after Jane fell asleep, Christian and I sat on the porch. We sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who've survived something together. The porch light flickered. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. The night air smelled like rain and cut grass. Normal, ordinary. And somehow, after everything, that felt like the greatest gift. Thank you, he said quietly, for letting me take her tomorrow. She asked, I said. I'm just honoring what she needs. Still, I know how hard that is for you. Terrifying, actually. He smiled sadly. I won't let anything happen to her. I know. And somehow, impossibly, I meant it. Margaret? Christian said finally. Yeah? What you did in there, being honest with her, not making me the villain, that took courage. She deserves the truth. Still, you could have made this easier on yourself. Could have let her blame me for everything. She wouldn't have been wrong to blame you for some of it, I said. But she also wouldn't have had the whole story, and I'm done with partial truths. Christian nodded. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For all of it, for not answering your calls, for making you feel like you didn't matter, for missing 7 years of her life. I know, I said, and I'm sorry too, for not trying harder, for disappearing, for keeping her from you. We both made mistakes. Yeah, we did. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen in 8 years. Hope. Do you think we can do better? He asked, moving forward. I think we have to, I said. For her. Just for her? I met his eyes. For now? Yes, just for her. He nodded, understanding. Okay, I can work with that. What he did the next day would prove he wasn't the man who'd broken me, and what Jane said a month later would prove I'd finally learned to let go. But first we had to survive what was coming, and maybe I thought that was enough. For now. Christian didn't become a father overnight. He stumbled, made mistakes, overcompensated in ways that made Jane roll her eyes and me hide smiles. But he showed up, every single day. That's what mattered. The Monday after their first solo outing to the aquarium, I got a call from Christian at 2 p.m. I need to cancel my flight to New York, I heard him say to someone in the background. Then to me, hey, is Jane's parent-teacher conference really at 4? Yes, I said, surprised he remembered, but you don't have to come. I know you have that investor meeting. I'm rescheduling it, he said simply. This is more important. Christian, Jane's second conference. Last year I went alone, but it's just routine. Mrs. Peterson is going to tell me that Jane is doing great and talks too much during quiet time. Then I want to hear it, he said. I've missed 7 years of teacher conferences. I'm not missing this one. He showed up at 3:50, slightly out of breath, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Mrs. Peterson's eyes went wide when she saw him, clearly recognizing him from the news coverage weeks earlier. Mr. Larry, she said, recovering quickly. What a pleasant surprise. Sorry I'm late, he said, sitting in the tiny chair next to mine. I'm Christian, Jane's father. The words came out so naturally, like he'd been saying them his whole life. Mrs. Peterson smiled warmly. Jane has told us all about you. She's very excited that you're in her life now. Christian's face softened. I'm excited too. For the next 20 minutes, we listened to Mrs. Peterson praise Jane's reading skills, her creativity, her kindness to other students, and yes, her tendency to share dinosaur facts during inappropriate times. Christian laughed at that. She gets that from me. The inappropriate timing, I mean. Not the dinosaurs. When we left walking to the parking lot, he turned to me. Thank you for letting me be there. You're her father, I said. You should be there. Still, I know I'm still earning my place in her life, in both your lives. Christian, you're doing more than earning it. You're showing up. That's everything. 3 weeks later, Christian missed a board meeting. Not just any board meeting, the quarterly review where they discussed company performance and future strategy. He called me at 8 p.m. sounding exhausted. I'm so sorry I'm late. The meeting ran over and then there was traffic. Christian, breathe, I said. What are you talking about? Jane's bedtime call. I promised I'd call at 7:30. It's 8 and She's still awake, I interrupted gently. She wanted to wait for you. Really? Really? Hold on. I brought the phone to Jane's room. She was in her pajamas, hugging Mr. Trunk, her eyes fighting sleep. It's Dad, I said. Her face lit up. I handed her the phone and left them alone, but I could hear her chattering through the door. And then in science, we learned about the water cycle, and I raised my hand so many times, and Mrs. Peterson said I was very enthusiastic. Christian listened to every word, asked questions, laughed in all the right places. When Jane finally said goodnight 20 minutes later, she handed me back the phone with a sleepy smile. He's the best, she said, then fell asleep within minutes. I put the phone back to my ear. She's out. Thank God, Christian said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. I was worried she'd be upset. She could never be upset with you. You called. I promised I would. I know, and that's why it matters. There was a pause. Then he said quietly, I missed something important tonight. The board wanted to discuss expansion into Asia. It's a big deal. I'm sorry, you could have. No, he interrupted. I couldn't have, because I promised Jane I'd call. And I'm done breaking promises to the people who matter. Something in my chest tightened. You're a good dad, Christian. I'm trying, he said. I'm really trying. A month later, I watched Christian sit on our living room floor for an hour, helping Jane with her math homework. She was learning addition, and she kept getting frustrated when she couldn't figure out the problems fast enough. I'm stupid, she said, throwing her pencil down. Hey, Christian said gently. You're not stupid. You're learning. There's a difference. But it's too hard. Want to know a secret? He asked. Jane looked up at him, curious. I was terrible at math when I was your age. I mean, really, really bad. Really, my teacher had to give me extra help at recess, and I cried a lot. Jane giggled. You cried? All the time. But you know what I learned? What? That hard things just take practice, and that it's okay to ask for help. So how about we practice together? No pressure, no rushing, just us figuring it out. They worked through the problem slowly, Christian's large hand dwarfing the tiny pencil. Jane's tongue sticking out slightly in concentration, the way it always did when she was thinking hard. The late afternoon sun slanted through the window, turning Jane's hair gold, and for a moment they looked so much alike it made my chest ache. Same focused expression, same determined set to their jaws. Father and daughter, learning each other one math problem at a time. Christian never got impatient, never did the work for her, but just guided her gently until she found the answers herself. When she finally got the last problem right, she threw her arms up in victory. I did it! You did! Christian high-fived her. See? Not stupid, just needed practice. I watched this from the kitchen doorway, something warm spreading through my chest. This was the man I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. Patient, kind, present. He'd been buried under ambition and pressure back then, but he was here now, fully, completely here. One evening, after Jane went to bed, Christian stayed to help me with dishes. It had become routine, him staying for dinner, helping clean up, talking while we worked. She's amazing, he said, drying a plate. I know I say that every time, but it's true. She is, I agreed, and you're a big part of why she's so confident right now. That's all you, he said. You raised her to be brave and smart and kind. I'm just showing up. You're doing more than showing up, I said. You're being consistent. You're keeping promises. You're learning what she needs. That's not nothing, Christian. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Can I tell you something? Sure. I spent 8 years building a company, creating something I thought would be my legacy. And it's successful. We're worth billions. We've changed industries. We've done things I'm proud of. But none of it matters as much as hearing Jane call me Dad. His voice cracked slightly. None of it compares to being the person she wants to call when she's excited about something, or scared, or just bored. I put down the dish I was washing and looked at him. You know what I realized? He continued. You did what I couldn't. You sacrificed everything, your comfort, your security, your own needs, to make sure she had what she needed. You're the strongest person I know, Margaret. Tears pricked my eyes. I didn't feel strong. I felt terrified most of the time. That's what strength is, he said, being terrified and doing it anyway. We stood there in my small kitchen, the air between us charged with something I wasn't ready to name yet. Thank you, I said finally, for seeing that, for not resenting me for it. How could I resent you, he asked. You gave her everything, including the courage to give me a chance. That evening, I went to grab my phone charger from the living room and heard Christian's voice from the porch. He was on a call, his back to the window. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but when I heard my name, I froze. No, I'm not coming back early, he was saying, his tone firm. I don't care if the Tokyo investors are threatening to walk. Find another solution, because my daughter has a science fair next week, and I promised I'd help her build a volcano. Yeah, I know what it costs. I don't care. No. You tell them I'll video conference, but I'm not missing this. There was a long pause. You want to know the truth? Margaret and Jane are the best thing that ever happened to me. For years, I thought success meant building something that outlasted me. Turns out I already had that. I just didn't know it. No, we're not together. Not like that. Not yet. But I'm showing up every single day, and that's more important than any deal we'll ever close. My throat tightened. Another pause, then quieter. She spent 7 years doing this alone, Tom. 7 years. The least I can do is be present for 7 days. Or 700. Or however long they'll let me. Yeah, I know, but she was right to protect Jane. I wasn't ready then. I'm ready now, and I'm not walking away. Not ever. I stepped away from the window before he could see me, my heart pounding. He wasn't performing for me. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He was just being a father. And somewhere between the churro line at Disney and this moment, I'd started to believe he always would be. 2 days later, we were at the park. Jane was playing with 2 other kids, building an elaborate sandcastle that kept collapsing. Christian and I sat on a bench, watching her negotiate architectural plans with 6-year-old diplomacy. She's going to be an engineer, Christian said. Or a dictator, I added. She's very bossy. He laughed. She gets that from you. Excuse me? She gets that from you. I've seen you run board meetings. Fair point. We watched in comfortable silence. Then one of the other kids, a boy around Jane's age, pushed her sand tower down. Jane stood up, hands on her hips. That was mean. It was falling anyway, the boy said. But we were fixing it. Christian started to stand, but I put my hand on his arm. Wait, let her handle it. We watched Jane take a deep breath, something we'd been teaching her, then say, if you want to play with us, you have to be nice. Otherwise, you can go play somewhere else. The boy looked surprised. Then he said, sorry, can I help rebuild it? Okay, Jane said, but you have to follow my plan. Christian laughed. Definitely a dictator. Jane turned then, catching sight of us on the bench. She waved enthusiastically. Dad, did you see? We're building a castle with a moat. The word came out so naturally, so easily, that I'm not sure she even realized she'd said it. But Christian did. His entire body went still. His breath caught. And when I looked at him, tears were streaming down his face. Christian, I said softly. She called me Dad, he whispered, without thinking, without hesitating. Just, Dad. Yeah, I said, my own eyes filling. She did. He covered his face with his hands, shoulders shaking, and I realized this was the moment it became real for him. Not the DNA, not the promises, not the legal facts. This. His daughter calling him Dad like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like he'd always been there. Like he always would be. Redemption isn't a moment. It's 1,000 small moments strung together by showing up. If you've ever watched someone become the person you always hoped they could be, you know how beautiful and painful that is. Share this with someone who's fighting to be better. And tell me in the comments, have you ever seen someone truly change? Because I believe people can. And I think you do too. That's why you're still here. 6 months later, we went back to Disney. Same park, different people. Jane still wore the pink mini ears, though they barely fit now. She'd grown 2 inches, and her confidence had tripled. Christian wore matching Mickey ears without a trace of self-consciousness. The billionaire CEO reduced to a father who'd do anything to make his daughter laugh. And me, I was no longer the woman who looked over her shoulder, waiting for the past to catch up. I was someone braver. Someone who'd learned that control and protection weren't the same thing. Someone who'd discovered that letting go could feel like freedom instead of loss. Disney hadn't changed. We had. We rode Space Mountain, ate churros in the same line where everything had started, watched the parade, and this time when the fireworks began, we stood together. Jane was on Christian's shoulders, her hands in his hair for balance. I stood beside them, and Christian reached over, taking my hand. I didn't pull away, because something had shifted over the past 6 months. Slowly, quietly, without fanfare or drama. We'd become a family, not the family I'd planned. Not the family I'd imagined 8 years ago when I'd packed my bags and disappeared, but a family nonetheless. Mommy, Jane said, looking down at me as colors exploded overhead. This is even better than last time. Yeah, baby, I said, my voice thick. It really is. The real shift didn't happen at Disney, though. It happened 3 weeks later, on a completely ordinary Tuesday. Jane had a school project due, a family tree assignment. She'd been working on it for days, carefully drawing branches and writing names. That evening, she came to me with the poster board, her expression serious. Mommy, I need to know something. What's that, sweetheart? Is it okay if I put Dad on my family tree? Like, officially? My heart clenched. Of course it's okay. He is your dad. I know, but... She hesitated. Some kids at school were saying that he's not my real dad because he wasn't there when I was born. And I told them that's stupid because he's here now. But then I started thinking, what if you don't want me to put him on there? I knelt in front of her, taking her small hands in mine. Jane, listen to me. Your dad is absolutely 100% your real dad. Biology makes someone a father, but showing up, loving you, being there for you, that's what makes someone a dad. And Christian is both. Understand? She nodded, relief flooding her face. So I can put him on my tree? You can put him on your tree. That night I watched her carefully write Christian Larry, Dad on a branch, then draw a line connecting him to her name. She held it up proudly. Perfect. And it was. The conversation I'd been avoiding came 2 weeks after that. Christian had been staying later and later after dinner, helping with homework, reading bedtime stories, sometimes falling asleep on the couch while Jane and I watched movies. It felt natural, easy, like he'd always been there. But we hadn't talked about what it meant until one night after Jane was asleep, when we were sitting on the porch under the stars. Margaret, Christian said quietly, can I ask you something? Sure. What are we doing? The question hung in the air between us. What do you mean? I mean, he turned to face me. I'm here almost every night. Jane calls me Dad. We have dinner together like a family. But we've never talked about what this is, what we are. My heart started racing. What do you want us to be? He stopped, started again. I want to be honest with you about what I'm feeling. Okay. I'm falling in love with you, he said simply. Again, or maybe still. I don't know, but watching you with Jane, seeing the life you've built, the strength you have, I'm in awe of you, Margaret, and I want to be part of your life, not just as Jane's father, but as your partner. I felt tears prick my eyes. Christian. But I need you to know, he continued, I'm not asking you to give me an answer right now. I'm not trying to rush you or pressure you. I just wanted you to know how I feel, because I'm done hiding things, done being afraid to be honest about what matters. I looked at this man who'd broken my heart 8 years ago, who'd missed 7 years of his daughter's life, who'd stumbled and failed and hurt me in ways I'd thought were unforgivable, but who'd also shown up every single day, who'd rearranged his entire life for a child he barely knew, who'd proven through actions, not words, that he'd changed. I'm scared, I admitted. I know. You hurt me before. Really hurt me, and I built walls to protect myself and Jane from ever feeling that way again. I know, he said again, and I don't know if I'm ready to tear those walls down. Even for you. Even now. Christian nodded, his face sad but understanding. That's fair, and I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking you to think about it, to consider that maybe, just maybe, we could build something better than what we had before. What if you leave again? I whispered. What if things get hard and you choose work over us? Then I'll be a fool, he said. But Margaret, I promise you, I swear on everything I am, that won't happen. I've learned what matters, and it's not board meetings or acquisitions or stock prices. It's this. You, Jane, family. Promises are easy to make. You're right, so don't trust my promises. Trust my actions. Trust the fact that I've been here every single day for 6 months. Trust that I canceled a trip to London to take Jane to her dental appointment. Trust that I chose reading bedtime stories over closing a multi-million-dollar deal. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth in his eyes. He meant it, every word. I can't guarantee I won't hurt you, he said softly. I'm human. I'll make mistakes, but I can guarantee I'll try, every single day, to be the partner you deserve and the father Jane needs. I took a shaky breath. I can't promise you anything right now. I'm not asking you to, but I can promise to try, to let my walls down a little, to see where this goes. His face lit up. That's all I need. One day at a time, I said. No rushing, no expectations. One day at a time, he agreed. He reached for my hand, and I let him take it. And we sat there under the stars, two broken people who'd found their way back to each other through the most unexpected path, through our daughter. The moment that mattered most didn't come with fireworks or grand gestures. It came 2 months later, on a Sunday morning. Jane had crawled into bed between us after a bad dream. Christian had stayed over the night before, something that was happening more frequently now, though he still slept on the couch. The three of us were tangled together, half awake, the early morning light streaming through the windows. Jane yawned and stretched. This is my favorite. What is? I asked sleepily. This. All of us together. It feels right. Christian's eyes met mine over her head, and I saw everything I needed to know. This was it. This was what mattered. Not the grand romantic gesture, not the perfect apology, not the tearful reunion. Just this, a quiet Sunday morning with the people we loved. Yeah, baby, I said, pulling them both closer. It does feel right. Later that afternoon, we went to the park. The same park where Christian had first pushed Jane on the swings, where he'd protected her from the careless boy, where she'd first held his hand. Jane was playing with friends now, confident and happy, her laughter carrying across the playground. Christian and I sat on our bench watching her. "You know what I realize?" I said. "What's that?" "Disney wasn't the happiest place." He looked at me confused. No, this is. Right here. This ordinary park on an ordinary day with our extraordinary daughter. Christian smiled, that genuine smile that crinkled his eyes. "You're right. The happiest place isn't where everything is perfect and magical," I continued. "It's where you feel safe, where you feel seen, where you feel loved." "And do you?" he asked quietly. "Feel those things?" I looked at him, at the man who'd destroyed me and then rebuilt me, at the father who'd missed 7 years but was making up for it one bedtime story at a time. "Yeah," I said, "I do." He leaned over and kissed my forehead. Gentle, respectful, full of promise. "Mommy, Dad," Jane called from the playground. "Come push me on the swings." We stood up together, hand in hand, and walked toward our daughter. And I realized something that changed everything. Healing doesn't erase the past. It doesn't undo the mistakes or the pain or the years you can't get back. It builds something braver on top of it. It takes broken pieces and creates something new, something that honors the struggle without being defined by it. It's choosing every day to show up, to try, to believe that people can change, and that love, real love, is stronger than fear. The happiest place was never Disney. It was here, in this small park, with grass stains and sticky hands and imperfect love. It was always here, waiting for us to be brave enough to find it. If you've made it to the end of this story, thank you. Really, because stories like this, about second chances, about choosing to show up, about families that don't look perfect but are built on something real, these stories matter. If this touched you, if it made you think about your own life or your own choices, do me a favor. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Share this with someone who needs hope today. And drop a comment telling me what moment hits you hardest. I'm here, I'm reading, and I'm so grateful you're part of this journey with me.